Okay, so really important thing when you're analyzing hands is to take the hand shape, and the hand shape is basically a function of the shape of the palm and the relative length of the fingers. So there are four hand shape types: square palms with fingers short in relationship to the palm, square palms with fingers long in relationship to the palm, oblong palms with fingers short in relationship to the palm, and oblong palms with fingers long in relationship to the palm. And if you look at the banner at the top of my page here, you'll see the four fundamental hand shape types displayed up there. And I'm going to look at those today and show you how you are to go about actually assessing the elemental shape, because it's quite confusing for people to know where to measure the hand. So I'm going to show you in a short video now, and then you'll know how to go about actually measuring a hand shape so you can assess whether the palm is square or palm is oblong. Now, obvious thing to do initially anyway is actually just look at the handprint itself, and you can see whether is it a square shape or whether it's an oblong shape, and you can probably see quite clearly that this is a square palm and that the fingers are quite short in relationship to the palm, whereas you can probably see that this is an oblong palm and the fingers are long in relationship to the palm. Well, how long is long and how short is short and how square is square and how rectangular is rectangular? Well, that's the question we're going to look at right now. So I'm going to show you how to do that so you can be clear about that. So I might be a bit of fiddling with the camera as we get in the right place so you can see what I'm doing. But basically, what you need to do is you basically need to measure, get a ruler. It's pretty easy. Get a ruler and actually use the ruler to measure the length and the width of the palm. So let's see if we can get that in the camera position right there. Okay, so we got it pretty much good. All right, I'll come down like that, I think. All right, so the first thing to do is to get a general impression and just look at it in a general way and say, look, is that a square palm or an oblong palm? And when you're measuring it, what you need to do is you need to take the print. Basically, this is done on a hand print. This is not done from the live hand, although you can do it from the live hand. What I'm going to explain to you now is how to do it from a hand print. The proportions are much the same for a live hand, but it's actually easier to do it on a print because you can very clearly see the boundaries of the palm, because that's where the ink has left its impression. So basically that's what you've got when you've got the hand, is to look at the boundaries of the hand. Now you can probably see here the pencil outline, and it's really important that you do a pencil outline on a hand when you're taking a hand print. This really helps clarify and define the boundary of the hand, and you can see that sometimes the pencil line is a little bit wider than the printed area. That's okay. That you can't take that into account though, because when you're looking at that, you'll see that sometimes the pencil is like this kind of angle and it's a bit away, or sometimes it's tucked in like that. Try and do the pencil line very straight like that when you draw it, so you know it's always the same position. But what you're really looking for is the printed area rather than the bulge of the hand, because you just don't know when looking at handprint of someone how careful somebody was when they did it. So look at the printed area only. And you've also got the interphalangeal creases at the base of the thumb and at the base of the fingers, and they're the demarcation points for the thumb and the fingers, obviously. And then the rossettes are the demarcation point for the palm, so you can just see a bit of a rosette there. And again, this is really where the inking of the palm actually ends, is kind of the key place to be looking at there. So we've assessed that this handprint is broadly square. I mean, that was our idea for when we looked at it. So let's actually measure it. So we measure it from the base of the middle finger down to the base of the inked area, and that's about 9.4 centimeters in length that way. And then from the width, we take it from the widest point, which is usually the top of the insertion point of the thumb, so about there, and then we've got a palm there that's 9 centimeters wide. Not an exact square, but guess what? Most things in nature aren't exactly square, aren't exactly rectangular, but quite clearly this is more or less square. So we're not trying to be too pedantic about it in terms of exact measurements, but that's 9.4 by 9, and that tells you that that's a square-shaped palm. All right, so what about the middle finger? Well, the middle finger you do from the tip of the printed area to the interphalangeal crease between the earth finger and the palm itself. So always use the earth finger because the earth finger is the longest finger. And you can see there that that is 7 centimeters long. So what we have in this palm is a palm that's 9 by 9.4, or I should say 9.4 by 9, with a middle finger that's 7 centimeters. So the mathematicians amongst you can work that out, but it's approximately 3/4 of the length of the palm. So if you look at it this way, you can see that the middle finger, just doing a crude measurement there, comes down to roughly this point, which is about the middle of the earth mount and the water mount there. That's what we'd expect to see. All right. So that's an earth-shaped hand. Just showing you that picture that way, you can see how square the palm is, and therefore the fingers are short in relationship to palm. That must be an earth hand. And actually, this is the handprint of a guy who was a trench digger. He was a traveling person, and his job was digging trenches. So he was really literally an earth mover in that sense. All right. So this next handprint is a water hand shape. And you can see from the water hand shape, it's completely different shape from the earth hand shape. And basically what you've got there is you've got a hand that is an oblong shaped palm and fingers that are long in relationship to the palm. So let's just measure those and see that. So again, the first thing to do, get a rough eyeball it, or is it square, is it rectangular? Just get a rough idea of what kind of shape hand it is. And then get your ruler out and measure it. So same rules apply from the base of the middle finger to the rosettes. And sometimes you can see the rosettes in the palm, as we can, in fact, in this particular hand. And what we've got here is we've got a palm that is 11 centimeters long, and then goes to width, which is the widest point, which is this just about the insertion point of the thumb, and that's about 8.4. So the middle finger, so that's 11 by 8.4, and then the middle finger is 9 centimeters. So you've got really long middle finger in relationship to the palm. And crucially, when you're considering this, the middle finger is actually longer than the width of the palm. So if we do a measurement that way, so the middle finger in a water hand shape is longer than the width of the palm. That's kind of how the confirmation is between, for example, if it's a water hand or any other hand shape. It's the water hand shape, the elongation of the palm makes the fingers longer than the width of the palm, which is quite unusual. So it's 11 by 8.5 by 9. So again, 9 over 11, if you're looking at the length of the middle finger in relationship to the length of the palm, probably about 85%. I don't know exactly, you can work it out yourself with a calculator, but you'll see it comes down a little bit lower than the other hand, and on the other hand, it's somewhere a little bit more down here as opposed to about there. So it's not a lot in it, but that's again, I think the important thing is not to be too pedantic about that in terms of the sort of mathematical precision. It's really trying to get a sense of the shape of the hand. And these measurements are just really kind of a guide to assist you in that regard. So you can see that this is an oblong shaped palm, and the fingers are long in relationship to the palm. All right, so for the third instance, so in the third instance, what we've got here is we've got a fire-shaped hand. So if you look at this particular hand shape, you can see it's a rectangular palm, and the fingers are short in relationship to the palm. Let's just compare it to the green one here, and you could probably see the difference in terms of the actual hand shapes. You can see the whoops going that way. Yeah, you can probably see that quite clearly. That it's a much longer palm and much longer fingers. So in the fire hand shape, what have we got here? Well, we've got a hand shape that is about you've got a little bit of a lacking of ink in that area, but the base of the palm is still here. So we've got a palm that goes down to there, and that is 10 centimeters. and again measuring it width of the palm. So just below that insertion point was the thumb. That's 8 centimeters, and then again for the those are the interphalangeal creases in that way there, and you'll see this is 7.5 centimeters. So this is 10 by 8 by 7.5, and that's what we kind of classic sort of proportions for a fire hand shape. And then lastly, we've got this unusual hand, which you can see is a very, very large hand. So what you've got there is you've got a very square palm and very, very long fingers. So what we'll do is we'll look at that in terms. So in this last example, we can see we have an air-shaped hand. So it's a very large palm with a square palm and long fingers. So let's measure that one too. And this time what we've got is a palm that's about 10.5 centimeters. Yeah, I'd say 10.5 centimeters wide, long. And we've got it's 10 centimeters wide. So again, looking at that insertion point between for the thumb and there, that's the widest part of the palm. So that's 10.2 in fact. So 10.5 by 10.2, that's pretty stunningly square. And then if we measure the length of the middle finger, again, remember, we're not using the outline. The outline is really like a sort of, the outline's a bit like a sort of frame around a picture. It helps to see the picture clearly, but it's not part of the picture per se. So if we do it that way, then we have 9.9. So it's about nearly 10 centimeters on the length of the middle finger. So the length of the middle finger is approximately the same length as the width of the palm, which is 10.4, and the length of the palm, which is 10.5, 10.6. So yeah, it's a very, very square palm and very long fingers. So that's the kind of methodology that I use to assess the hand shape type. Now you can do that on a live hand. That's also possible to do that on the live hand. But you've got to obviously got the contours and the shape of the hand to take into consideration when you do it that way, because basically, obviously, the hand isn't exactly flat and smooth. So it's actually easier to measure it on the hand print. But as a kind of rule of thumb, if you're looking at a live hand, you can still do the same thing. You can look at the hand and get a measure of the middle finger. That's what that's kind of, I'd usually do it that way. So I just get a pencil or something and just see if the middle finger is long or short in relationship to the palm. And the crucial thing is the width as well. So in a fire hand shape, for example, the middle finger will be shorter than the width of the palm. There are certain variations of the fire hand shape where the middle finger is the same length as the width of the palm, but it's only in air hands and water hands where you get the finger that long, and water hand is the only hand shape where you get the fingers longer than the width of the palm, the middle finger. So hopefully you've got some ideas how to actually measure the hand shape types. It takes a little bit of practice, and actually, in fact, the thing to do really is just look at the handprint and kind of get a sense of it, your impression of it, and eventually you'll get a sense of it just straight off looking at a hand. You'll work out the hand shape type. But it's worth kind of having these measurements in mind so you can clarify in particular instances where they're just a little bit closer in shape and in terms of the palm and the finger length. And those variations are important. So there's a whole system of secondary hand shape classification which is useful to employ when it comes to looking at, for example, fire hand shapes. But the 4 primary hand shape types, earth, water, fire, and air, are basically shown by the square palm, or rectangular palm, and the relative lengths of the fingers in relationship to those palm shapes. But it's a very logical division of the hand shape. It was invented by Fred Gettings. He talks about it in his book, The Book of the Hand, 1965, being copied by many other people. But it is actually the most sensible hand shape classification system out there, and it takes into consideration the 2 most important features of the hand themselves: the shape of the palm and the length of the fingers. All right, hopefully that's helpful. And if you've got any comments or questions, you can put them in the commentary below. Thank you very much.